Still getting the bearings straight after the 24-hour stream, but good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Red Ned Show, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon, and it looks like I am flying solo today here. I was supposed to be joined by the wonderful Trent Ortner, but I'm not quite sure where he is at this moment, so we have got to get into this anyway, because I made the promise that I would be here at 5:30 Central Time every Thursday or every Monday night, and I am here at 5:30. Well, a little bit late because I did give Ortner the benefit of the doubt so we could get going. But yeah, I'm here, and we got to get through this because we have got so much. We got a ton to get through today, and we're going to get through it all. We're going to bust through it all, and we're going to have some fun while we're doing it too. So probably be a little bit heavier on the live chat than I usually am on the show. Usually I'll do it between topics, and I'm still going to do it for a bit between topics. But we have got to get started here. But before we get started, first I do want to say a big thank you to everybody who came by and hung out for the 24-hour stream this weekend. It was just such an amazing experience, you guys. I'm so unbelievably happy that everything went the way that it was, everything went the way that it did, and we made enough. And I still have a couple donations flowing in. We ended the night at about 1,600, a little bit over 1,600. We wound up, as of right now, we are at 1,883 is our total on here. And I'm going to hold to it. I'm going to leave everything open until next week's Red Ned Show. Immediately after we get done with the Red Ned Show next Monday, that's when I'm going to shut it down. So you have, from right now, exactly 7 days and 2 hours to go and get those last minute donations in if you want to get up there too. And I'll hold to my promise. If you guys get up to the $2,500, I promised Elaine that I would do it, and I will chop the hair. I know it's getting long, and Elaine wants it to seem a little bit shorter. I don't know, maybe she's going to try and hook me up with somebody, I don't know. But, yep, I will do it. I'll do it, and I'll cut the hair, and it'll be good. It'll be a great time. I'm so excited to, I'm just in general excited for everything that happened over this weekend. A lot of great conversation. I met a lot of wonderful people, and we got to talk about, stuff that's not necessarily just sad boy stuff. And I mentioned it over on Contemporary this morning. I was really worried that this was going to be a lot of, people talking about, well, I have a friend that did this. I'm so depressed. I'm so unhappy about this. But it wasn't that. It was amazing. Talking to Harvey McLeod about video games and parenting. And her move around the country, too. Talking to John about video games. Talking to Rachel about her work with the Libertarian Party. Listening to Joshua Smith talk about how he got out to Iowa and started raising a family. Listening to Gino Orlando talk about the hobbies and what we were going to be doing with the money. There was almost, we still did talk about some of the sad boy stuff, and I let everybody have their ideas, but it was a regular conversation, and I couldn't be more happy with how any of this stuff turned out. So thank you, everybody. The link is open. I took the link out of the description, but for Contemporary, I'm actually going to put it back in starting tomorrow morning for Contemporary, just so we've got it. We're ready to go and ready to hang with all that. So definitely looking forward to all that and everything else that we've got going on. So special thank you to everybody else who participated, and thanks to Styx too for patching in from across the ocean. That was such an awesome conversation. I wasn't even intimidated by the guy. As soon as he was up on the screen, I actually did think, and I didn't talk about this morning at all, but I actually thought that I would be intimidated to see somebody of such a great stature who's put so much work into this, who would take his time and step down and talk to a guy who's got a 270 sub YouTube channel. But I wasn't intimidated at all. As soon as he was there, it was like talking to another guy, and we actually seemed to have a lot more in common than one would think too. It was an enjoyable conversation. Definitely glad I got to have it. Definitely glad I got to meet the guy. So, absolutely. The video is not processed yet. I just checked back to it because somebody else over on Instagram asked me if I could share the link to the 24-hour stream, and I tried to, but it's not processed yet. So it's still hanging out there in limbo. Who knows how long it's going to take Wojcicki to get it through, but I would like to actually cut that up and, make separate videos out there for everybody else's interview and get it up on BitChute and stuff. I know I hate myself, and I know I keep trying to say that I'm going to go finish out my my real estate classes, but, everyone who participated deserves a dedicated video as well. So I'm going to see where I can pencil that into my schedule. I know it's probably going to be hard to, but just such an amazing time off this. But we can't sit here and glow about everything that happened over the weekend forever here. We do have to get down to the news and talk about everything that happened over the past week here. Unfortunately, it looks like Ortner's going to be a no-show, so I got to get started, and we got to go. So, we got to we'll start with what we're going to talk about this week. Sorry, I'm so used to doing this with somebody else on the other side of the screen, and I know that I did it for a long time by myself while Elaine was on the campaign trail, just because, there were emergencies that popped up at the last minute. But it's still a little bit intimidating to do this by myself. But we've got a bunch of stuff to go to here. The horrifying shooting that happened in Brooklyn Park over the past week, it maintained a large portion of the news throughout the week, and it maintained a lot of focus. But it did seem like that may have fallen off the focus over the weekend because Kim Potter decided she was going to step down and turn herself in, and yet the riots continue. So we'll talk a bit about what happened there, what happened with Maxine Waters. I actually might move that and talk more about that during the Chauvin trial as well, because it seems to be more relevant to that based on some very breaking news that popped up right before we went live. So we'll talk a bit more about that as it goes on. Plus, we'll talk about the Adam Toledo shooting and the shooting that happened in Minneapolis. In other news, the Chauvin trial has concluded its statements and witnesses as of this point. So we'll talk a bit about what happened there, the review of what's happened over the past couple weeks, the deliberation, some of the reactions to the deliberation, some of the reactions from the armchair lawyers that are out there at this point. We'll talk a bit about all the stuff that's happened through that, and where I think this is going to go, what I think this is going to do, and even what's going to happen now that Maxine Waters decided she needed to make her statement. And we might get breaking news in the middle of this as well. I've been kind of paying attention to some stuff off to the side to see if the jury decides they're going to be done deliberating yet today and decide they need to come back out and talk. As of right now, from where I'm sitting, they are still out, but I'm sure the live chat will come out and tell me if something pops in. So we'll see what happens there. Veritas released a pretty damning video coming up from CNN, and then they promptly got suspended from Twitter. Well, Veritas has been suspended, but O'Keefe got himself suspended as well. So we'll talk a bit about what's happening there. We'll listen to a portion of the video. We'll talk about O'Keefe's suspension and what this could mean and what the next step is going to be for that. We are going to do border today because the saga keeps going. It's Biden's biggest failure, and it's one of the things that some of the stuff with the police shooting and the Chauvin trial, well, not even the Chauvin trial, because they've been trying to keep that under wraps too, but a lot of this crazy stuff we've seen over the last few weeks has been trying to hide the fact that Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. has failed on the border. So we'll talk a bit about some of the next steps that are going off in this. And yes, I have missed border conversations for the past few weeks. I know. If I miss another border conversation throughout the week, you're going to have to start calling me CNN, because they're not going to report on it either. So yeah, it's going to be that. Biden says he's going to pull us out of Afghanistan by 9/11, and he's using that date of 9/11 to pander to all hell. But I still don't buy it because, Biden's never seen a war action that he doesn't like. So I will believe the pullout when I see it. Absolutely will. But the neocons and the warhawks are out there ready to keep us in the Afghanistan region as well. So we'll talk about all of that which is going on over there. Lastly, we will talk about the vaccines and an interesting chip that the Pentagon has decided could help tell you when you're sick. Which I'm telling you right now, Pentagon, you didn't need to do that. The conspiracy theorists are having enough of a great time finding anything and everything they can coming from the government to come out and say that it's the end times, it's the end of days, and the mark of the beast is here. You didn't have to help them. Plus, we'll talk about the suspension of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and I believe it was the Pfizer-BioNTech that's also been pulled from Europe. So it's going to be all this and more. Plus, I've got some surprise stupidity at the end, and I'm really hoping that Ortner shows up so I can tell him about it. But other than that, we will come back and we'll talk a bit about what I thought was the most tone-deaf statement coming up out of the government over on Twitter this week. It's going to be all this and more over on the RedNet Show. Thank you for checking us out live, and if you want a place to check us out other than YouTube, we are streaming live right now to YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Periscope. I'm sorry, not Periscope, because they cut off Periscope. No more Periscope. They cut that off this morning. I went to go try and sign into Periscope. They said it was disabled, and to go sign back into it, and then I couldn't sign back in anymore. So what they said they were going to do on March 31st, they took until April 19th to do, but Periscope is no more. We will see if there's an update once Twitter live streaming comes back up. Plus, I'm actually going to look into some other platforms as well because, I want all those backups there just in case I do get nuked from YouTube and then DLive and Twitch all at the same time. But we'll see what happens with that. I don't think I'll get nuked from Trovo just yet, but at some point I am probably going to get nuked from these platforms. So look into that over there. But if you can't catch us live, you can catch us processed and back on demand over on YouTube and over at BitChute.com. Go ahead and check us out there. The BitChute is linked in the description as well, so you can go check that out. And now that the big charity stream is over, I am going to, because I'm way behind on doing the YouTube and the BitChute, so I'm going to get caught back up. I think I'm going to start fresh from Contemporary again. I'll put all the RedNet Show episodes back up, but I will start fresh with Contemporary again. We'll just call the ones that I haven't done a wash at this point, because I'm so far behind. The planning for this entire 24-hour stream ate my life. It ate my soul. But there's plenty of stuff to catch up on, and I know that you guys want to take us on the go. We are available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. You can check us out on any of those platforms. Just search The Red Ned Show. You will see the wonderful logo that is usually behind me, but because I'm on full screen right now, is not behind me. Let's go have a look at that. You'll see that logo and you will know that we are there. So go and check us out. And if you're on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That really helps us move up the charts. It helps us overcome Apple's algorithm. Plus, also like, comment, and subscribe over on the YouTube side to also help overcome their algorithm as well. So, all of that. Everything is up there ready. And you guys are up here too. So, let's look at some of the stuff that we've got going on for the week here. Looks like I got a couple people sitting in the live chat as well, so thanks for hanging out, you guys. Little one that came from my neck of the woods over the weekend here, and I can't say that I'm surprised. I really can't at this point. Looking at this bar, knowing the fact that it's been busted up for having firearms in the bar before. And I think there has been a shooting in that bar once before. I still have not been able to confirm that because I was finishing up the document for today's show up until pretty much we got to the point of today's show. But I'm pretty sure there has been at least one shooting in that bar prior. But according to CBS News, 3 dead and 3 hurt in shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin bar. Person of interest in custody. When did Kenosha suddenly become something of national news? When did we start looking at Kenosha and saying, you know what, we're going to report on that place every fucking chance we can? I couldn't believe that they burned Kenosha down over Jacob Blake, because I couldn't believe that it happened and that somebody actually made a big deal out of any of this, but it did happen, and now we're looking in and seeing what could be a little bit more hell coming into there. We don't know any of the details of this. It looks like they have the person in custody, so nobody else is going to get hurt, but I've drank at this bar, and if you put a bar right between a private school and the ghetto, there's going to be tension. I don't know, honestly, and I've been a little bit concerned about a couple things before, also looking at the social situation. And some of these shootings being plants, just because, you look at the situation where a person suddenly was able to get a gun in spite of red flag laws and in spite of having glaring things on his history where he would not be able to pass the FBI background check. In spite of all that, the person is still able to get a gun. And I do think that some of these could be plants. I also think Marjorie Taylor Greene is a plant at this point. So maybe my friend Stephen Ignoramus is going to have to pass me some of that tinfoil. But yeah, at this point, it is. I mean, it's hard to look at some of this. However, looking at the Summers house and the fact that, we don't know anything about the shooter, just that he was taken into custody, and it just happened to happen while Congress has a hard-on for gun control. I actually think this one was grassroots, but once again, that comes from me knowing the local geography, knowing the local social situation, and knowing a lot more about the locality than most people who are reading this article and just says, "Oh my God, another shooting, what are we going to do?" I covered my mouth when you did that. I don't even know if you guys could even hear that. But that's what we have going on for that. All right. So, person in custody. Looks like everything's cleaned up. Carthage was on lockdown briefly, but they opened that back up on Sunday morning. So, looks like everybody else is going to be safe. 6 confirmed victims. There may be a 7th one out there because it looks like there was another person who got injured and took off in a car later. So, we'll probably see some more coming back up out of this, especially given the fact that this fits the narrative and this might help push some more gun control. So we'll continue to watch this one here. A little bit of Breonna Taylor news. Mother of Breonna Taylor blasts Black Lives Matter chapter as fraud that exploited daughter's death. So this was interesting. I saw this this morning for the first time. And we've already talked about the fact that Michael Brown's father, Michael Brown Sr., was also fairly pissed off over the fact that the BLM started with the Michael Brown case. They didn't exist before that. But Michael Brown's family got almost no money out of all the money that they raised for BLM. And yet we're also sitting here looking at the fact that the founder of BLM, who is a trained Marxist, by the way, has bought $3+ million worth of real estate, plus was looking at an apartment in the Caribbean for a few more million. And we don't know how they got this money. Now, I'm not going to come out and say that all of the money that the founder of BLM has used to buy these houses, I'm not going to say that all that came from the grassroots donations, because people like this also command speaking fees so they can go out and talk at a college or talk at a big dinner or something else like that, where you put out X amount of plate and you've got to pay 30, 40, 50 bucks just to get in and eat there. Sometimes it's even more than that. Some of these plates that they see for DNC donations are $1,000 a plate. So it may not just be grassroots donations that she's embezzling, but either way, this is a trained Marxist, but I mean, this is Marxism in and of itself, because what did the Politburo do? They don't live among the masses. They live off in their gated communities somewhere and let the masses take the breadcrumbs that they have left over after the Politburo spends all that money. But Breonna Taylor's mother put a lengthy Facebook statement out off of this, and I read a little bit of this morning, but I'm sorry, the grammar was so bad on this. I had a hard time with this. Plus, it was like 8:30 in the morning. Slept too, so now that I'm more awake and had a little bit more caffeine, I'm actually going to try to do this again, but I don't know how well it's going to work. The statement read, "I think it's crazy when people say they've been here since day one. Let me be clear, Christopher 2X, the Montgomery family, is the one and the only day one's not to mention Breonna's friends and family, but they never needed recognition immediately following is until freedom. I have never personally dealt with BLM Louisville, and I personally have found them to be a fraud. Attica Scott, another fraud. And then there's the people at Injustice Square, a.k.a. Breeway, who has been 100 and held it down. But that doesn't go to say everyone down there doesn't, but they know who they are and also never needed recognition. I could walk into a room full of people who claim to be here for Breonna's family who don't even know who I am. I've watched y'all raise money on behalf of Breonna's family who has never done a damn thing for us. Nor have we needed it, or nor have we asked so. Talk about fraud. It's amazing how many people have lost focus. Shaking my damn head. I'm going to say this before I go. I'm so sick of some of y'all. And I was last anyone who needs it. I'm with this shit. Enough is enough. I've read that 4 times. Just so you know. And I still can't pick my way through it. The best that I can make out of this statement, and I'm sorry to Breonna's mother. I am sorry to Palmer, Tamika Palmer, that I couldn't do more to read off of this. Now, do I think that this whole thing was bullshit with Breonna Taylor? Probably. But I also think that you shouldn't be arrested for putting whatever the fuck it is that you want in your body. It's your body. And I think the drug laws are bullshit. But there was more going on to this than just she was sleeping in her bed as well. And honestly, just kind of looking at some of the ballistics, because a lot of this has been released at this point, I think there might be a chance that she was the one that shot some of the gunshots off as well. But nobody seems to know what the hell was going on with this. However, this whole thing could have been exacerbated by not exacerbated, but this whole thing could have been mitigated by the fact that we have way too many drug laws in this country. Shoulda, woulda, couldas all the way in the back. However, if BLM is going to come out there, and they are raising tons of money, people are sending money from all across the country to support Tamika Palmer and Breonna Taylor's family, and they're not getting jack shit out of it. And it's time for people to start looking back and saying, hey, we're not getting jack shit out of this. What's the deal? You raise money to help support my family. Why am I not getting any of this money? But we'll see what happens with that. And yeah, absolutely. If that's what the people are donating to BLM for, are donating to it for, to help the family of Breonna Taylor or George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery or anybody else who they're donating for, then that the family should be getting the bulk of the money. Maybe a little bit to come off for administrative costs, but not walking away with just pennies. Especially when the founder is buying millions of dollars in property. So that's what I see off of that. Let's keep going. This article here. CNN's Chris Cuomo, white people's kids need to start getting killed for police reform to happen. Let's just watch the video, because this is horrifying. And we're not even going to watch the whole video. But we're going to watch some of this, because this was probably one of the most horrifying things that I've ever heard a newscaster say. Hang on, let me turn my other screen off, because I have no guest. I have no guest host. I have no co-host. And it's just me here. But yeah, let's see what Cuomo had to say. Give that a second to load. There it goes. Bring her over, and let's have a listen.
George Floyd, Daunte Wright. I wonder if you'll remember their names 6 months from today, because they'll be replaced by so many others. You're here, people. What are you going to do when you see these shootings? You know what you're going to do. That George Floyd. Did you hear about him? That Daunte Wright. Did you hear about him? That 13-year-old Adam. You know he was a gangbanger. Why do that? Because you want to make the problem them. Takes the onus off the idea that you're wrong about policing not needing to change. Forget that police are trained to deal with non-compliance with force that is not lethal. Hey, comply or die. You know what I mean? And you know what the answer is? You really do. You don't like it. I don't like it. It scares me. Shootings, gun laws, access to weapons. Oh, I know when they'll change. Your kids start getting killed. White people's kids start getting killed. Smoking that doobie that's actually legal probably in your state now, but they don't know what it was. And then the kid runs and the pop, 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 pop. Cop was justified. Why'd you run? Oh, he had a baseball game tonight. Huh. A white kid. Oh, big family. That house over there. Those start piling up. What is going on with these police? Oh, what? Maybe we shouldn't even have police. That kind of mania, that kind of madness, that'll be you. That'll be the majority.
That is demonic. I'm sorry. And I said the same thing this morning. That rant is fucking demonic. That is beyond evil. Wishing death to white kids because he thinks that that's the only way to try and get some sort of police reform in. That is beyond evil. And yet he still has a program. Can you imagine if Tucker had said something like this? Can you imagine it? For even a second. If this was a Tucker Carlson rant and he had said something even remotely like this, there would be calls to, well, there already are calls to end Fox News, but there would be calls to have Fox News yanked completely off the air. All the advertisers gone, and Tucker Carlson to be drug out in stocks. Can you even imagine if this went the other way? That's horrifying. And yet, Chris Cuomo still has his 7-figure salary. He still gets to go on CNN. He still gets to be the brother of the governor, who is untouchable at this point. And, guys, I can't even look at something like this. I can't even listen to something like this and say, how is this person still allowed to have a TV show, to have his channel? How can this person be permitted to stay on the air? Not only is that racist, that is pure evil. All right, let's keep going here. We still got some other stuff to do, and then we'll check in with the live chat. This other one, a lot of stuff that I covered this morning here, but still going to be the same. From The Blaze, journalist slammed online for going to home of paramedic who donated $10. $10. Not 10 grand. $10 to Kyle Rittenhouse's legal defense. So the reporter is being skewered for visiting the home of a Utah paramedic who donated $10 to the legal defense fund of Kyle Rittenhouse. The fire department where the paramedic works has launched an investigation following the special report on the private citizen's donation. So apparently over the weekend, there was a data breach at Give, Send, Go, which is basically a GoFundMe for Christian charities and charities that GoFundMe won't allow on there because they're either made by the wrong people or for the wrong causes. So and the guy made an anonymous post, which, I mean, looking back at what I did for GoFundMe too, for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, I made it a point to not give the name of anybody, except I slipped up with Saint, of course. But I made it a point not to give up the name of anybody who donated to the charity under an anonymous name. The people who were open and proud with it, I said, yes, okay, this is cool. Thank you, X person, Y person, Z person. But the people who wanted to be anonymous remained anonymous. And, once again, I could go out and name names because I know some of the people were my friends, and I can still see, and Give, Send, Go can still see this too because they do this for tax purposes, tax exemption, and also to, if there is some sort of embezzlement going on or some sort of money laundering, then they still have the chance to do this. But there was a massive leak at Give, Send, Go, which meant that the names of everybody who donated to this particular fund were out, and, some guy in Utah looks and says, I know where this address is. I'm going to go there. Now, the fire department has an internal investigation going on into this guy and how he could possibly have given $10 to this legal defense fund, which, honestly, given the fact that they set this out on air, said there's probably not an investigation, and the fire department just said, go the fuck away. We don't want to talk to you guys. But there it is, out there in the open. And, I mean, you see the guy go up to the front door. I didn't show it the second time. I showed it this morning. And then another picture where it shows, they must have deleted. No, that's because I don't have Read More out there. I thought they deleted it. But yeah, I mean, the tweet out there actually goes out and shows him standing up at the door with the ornament on the front. I mean, this is intimidation. So now everybody in the Utah area and everyone else around the country can possibly get an idea of what this house looks like, where it is, and then start sending letters to it, intimidating, and all over $10. This is disgusting. All right, let's keep going. The America First caucus, rather, came and went over the weekend. So apparently this was a caucus that was founded by Marjorie Taylor Greene, which honestly, with this one, and I've been suspicious about this for a while, but with this one, Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced and then suddenly backed away from a caucus that would celebrate Anglo-Saxon ideals, values, engineering, and the wonderful architecture that came from it. Dude, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a plant. I cannot see any other way other than to say that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a plant by the mainstream media and Democrats to try and make the GOP look bad. And I've defended Greene at first because when she lost her committee assignments, that was one of the things that I saw with that was the fact that, they shouldn't be able to take her committee assignments away from her, and you know what's going to happen when the shoe's up on the other foot over something that she did before she was in office. But you know, some of the theatrics that are coming from Marjorie Taylor Greene at this point, including making a white caucus in Congress. Not that there shouldn't be a white caucus in Congress, but you know, with the way that the media is charged right now, what they're going to do and what they're going to take and run from this. This is too over the top at this point. This is theatrics at this point, and I don't understand at all how this can be this tone deaf and still be realistic. But yes, there was an America First caucus, which celebrated the engineering of Anglo-Saxons. Boehner got on to Meet the Depressed over the weekend and complained about it. And now it's going away, and now suddenly Marjorie is backing away from this thing. So it came, and it went, and now it's gone. F's in the chat for the America First caucus. How is this any different than the Congressional Black Caucus anyway? Other than the fact that being white is racist in the eyes of the mainstream media. I'd say that's pretty racist. This weird article popped up over the weekend. Consensual incest should be decriminalized, advocates say. This is from Kathy Ann Boniello. Consensual incest advocates are rooting for an anonymous New York parent who wants to marry their own adult child. What the hell is wrong? Every day we stray further from God. And this coming out, because I said the same thing in a group chat that I'm in over on Twitter too, because I saw on the College Fessing Instagram page a confession where a guy he's dating one identical twin, and he wants to have a threesome with the both of them. And then we see stuff like this too. Every day we stray further from God. Now, I understand the desire for the government to criminalize incest. And out of the degeneracy, it is probably one of the most consensual forms of degeneracy there is. It's still fucking disgusting. And the extra chromosome, the kid with the extra chromosome is going to be looking up and saying, which one of y'all did I get that from? Did I get that from Auntie Mom or Uncle Daddy? But I understand why the government would want to have a law for this, because one of the big things the government does is they are concerned with the next generation, the generation that follows. They are very concerned with making sure that they have able-bodied taxpayers to come back and pay the next generation's taxes. So that's why you have tax incentives to go get married, to go have kids, and to get married too, because then when you raise your kids, then you have an idea who the parents are, and you can trace lineage as well for statistics. Something else the government is very, very interested in. So there's a big understanding as to why the government's concerned and has consensual incest law. I can't believe those sentences exist in the same sentence together. But a big part of this, and something I mentioned this morning, is the fact that the biggest push for this right now is coming out of Australia. It's not even coming out of the US right now. Richard Morris, an Australian who's pushing to change the incest laws, he's going around and doing this in country to country to country. So, I can't. I really can't. But it happens, I guess. All right, we've got a couple more here, then we'll do some live chat and get into the big topics. Spit in the face of judicial independence. GOP leaders rise to condemn Dems court packing plan. Yeah, I couldn't even fit this into a main topic this week. And once again, believing that I was going to have a co-host this week. But I couldn't fit this into a main topic this week because this is just, there's so much going on here. So with what we're seeing here, the Democrats in Congress have passed a resolution to increase the number of justices from 9 to 13, which is a terrible thing to do right now without a filibuster and in the hyperpolarized climate that we have. Now, if the climate was less polarized, or if we still had the judicial filibuster in place, I would actually be okay with this. Because you've still got to go back and sell your Supreme Court justices to 10 people of the opposite party in order to get them through. And there are 13 court districts, which that was what it was supposed to be tied to. There was supposed to be one Supreme Court justice for every court district. For every federal court district, I should say. So yes, we have 13 federal districts, which means we should have 13 justices. But without the judicial filibuster in place, anybody who gets put up and anybody who changes this right now is going to cry foul, and it is going to look like a power grab, which at this point it actually looks like it is. So, yeah, they're getting the pushback, and AOC thinks it's a good idea because it sounds like AOC thinks there should be 100,000 people in the Supreme Court because this is the only way, okay, Poppy, that we can make sure. Why do so few people have the power to overturn laws that took thousands of people to write? Which is 3/4 of the problem right there, the fact that it takes so many people to write these laws, because they're thousands of pages long and they're full of pork. Nobody can pass a simple one-line bill anymore. Unless it is to raise the number of justices in the Supreme Court, because that was only a 2-page bill. But the pushback is going, and that's what we're seeing from here. I got one from NPR. Officer cleared in the death of Ashley Babbitt during the Capitol riot. And this was interesting, and I almost juxtaposed this one against the Kim Potter shooting. Once again, something that I was going to do based on the fact that I thought that I was going to be discussing everything right now, and I wanted to get through this one a little bit quicker. But yeah, they came out and said they looked at all this, which I don't know where they got this from either, but they did an internal investigation. They found that it was just fine for a police officer in a panic to see a young woman pop her head up and get shot for her fucking trouble. Unarmed. And she is the only person who has passed away, by the way, as a direct result of the Capitol Selfie Fest. You know, this bullshit that they were doing with the Capitol police officers. Because it came out today, and I didn't put this in the lineup today, but it came out today that Brian Sicknick didn't die from getting bashed in the fucking head. That came out today. He died afterwards, which completely shoots the entire narrative off of it. At that point, the only person who died as a result of the Capitol riot is Ashley Babbitt. The only people who died in the riot were rioters. And we're still using this as a national security thing. And all cops are bastards unless they're the ones that shot Ashley Babbitt. So, there we go. Stacey Abrams made the news this week because she told Hollywood to stay and fight in Georgia. So Will Smith's production left Georgia. His upcoming film, Emancipation, came out of Georgia because they couldn't stand to be there paying the taxes to the evil racist state that's making all these evil racist voting laws, like extending the voting hours. But it's evil and racist because of voter ID. So, and Will Smith's wasn't the only one to pull out of Georgia, but it was one of the higher profile projects to get pulled out of Georgia at this point. But what happens when you pull these big high dollar productions out of Georgia with the thousands upon thousands of people that work on these big high dollar productions? The thousands and thousands of people go work somewhere else and pay taxes somewhere else and get to vote somewhere else. And because these people are coming from Hollywood, I don't mean to judge everybody the way that it is, especially knowing Britt and her husband and what her husband does. I'm not going to say what he does, but I know what he does. However, there is a big push in the film industry to keep them left. And a lot of them do stay very far to the left at this point. Which means that these people from the film industry are running out to Georgia because it's got lower taxes and a lower cost of production, and bringing their politics with them, which will actually raise the taxes and cost of production in Georgia too, by the way, just so you know. But Stacey Abrams wants their votes, so now she's begging them out to come back. She's figured out the algorithm. Please, please stay in Georgia. We need your votes. All right, last one. We'll do some live chat, and then we'll get into the Kim Potter shooting. The last one here, and this is some good news, so we're going to end this segment on some good news here. Nikki Haley says she's not going to run in 2024. Although it's only if Trump runs. But a win is a win, no matter what. There is a way to keep Nikki Haley away from the presidential primary for the GOP. I can't stand Nikki Haley. She is a horrible person. She's a warmonger. She's a Bush fucking neocon. And if she gets in there, guess where we're going back to? That is if, and only if, Joe Biden actually keeps his word and pulls us back out of Afghanistan. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. But yes, Nikki Haley says if Trump runs for president in 2024, then she won't run. It's a little bit of a win. It's not much of a win, but it's a little bit of a win. All right. That is that for the lightning round here. Let's see what you guys are saying. Well, let me take a second here and get a little bit of stuff caught back up too. Just because I want to catch up with a little bit of stuff as well. So let me get a couple articles going here. Where's my show notes? I'm so organized here, especially when I'm by myself. So let me just grab a couple articles here, and we will talk about this. I want this one. I want this one. I want this one. Actually, I don't want that one, because that's going to do an autoplay. I want this one. And I want this one. I think that'll give us enough information for what's going on here. Let's see what you guys are doing. Where's my live chat? There it is. Oh, wow. Busy night tonight. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Quest Fanning is here. Clint Olson is here. How are we doing, Clint? Welcome onto the show. Ben Wild is here. Twitter is how you say suppository in tech speak. Ha ha! Boom. Got him. I like this Ben Wild guy. The last time Biden pulled out, we got Hunter Biden. Thank you, Ben. 24-hour stream. Will the insanity ever pause? Yeah, this past Saturday, I went from midnight to midnight to help raise funds for suicide prevention, which is a cause that's very, very near and dear to me. So yeah, and it was intense, and legitimately by the end of it, people were still talking because we had a little party at the end of it. 7 people came in and just live chatted back and forth with each other. Some of my favorite people in the world, and a couple of people I was meeting for the first time. And that's all we did, was sat back and live chatted back and forth with each other. But once midnight hit, I hit the ending music, the same ending music you're going to hear in probably about an hour and a half. Ooh, less than that. I don't even know how long I've been streaming for. I'm sorry, an hour and 15 minutes. The same outro music you're going to hear in about 15 minutes. I hit the outro music and I said, we're done. I'm going to bed. But yeah, it was a great time. I met a lot of great people. Clint Olson says, I'm going with vegetable or minimal for MTG. Nice. Boulder Vaughn is here. Welcome on in, Boulder Vaughn. McConnell smuggles coke. Says, Biden pulls out of Afghanistan. Woo, what a hero. Personally, I would have finished in Afghanistan. McConnell, I've met you, and it seemed that you're probably more apt to finish in an Afghan. He also says, no straight man wears lipstick. Yeah, that's our little Fredo over there. Quest Fanning says Duncan Lemp, which I'm not sure what that means. Nobody watches avocado toast with lipstick. Quest says suicide prevention fundraiser link. By the way, if you put exclamation point donation in either the YouTube or the Twitch chat, that will still automatically bring up the link too. Because I didn't disable that yet. As long as that's going to be live, I have not disabled that link yet. So that still has functionality. You can go ahead and do that anytime. You don't even have to be a mod to do it. Anybody can go in there and just put exclamation point donation. Except I'm not going to do it because it'll jump me to the bottom. And you guys are still making very, very good live chat up here. Ben Wild says, I tell you, this downward spiral all began when they allowed synchronized swimming as an Olympic sport. That is an art, man. And you don't understand the amount of athleticism that goes into that kind of stuff, man. It is super weird to watch, but there's... And, you know, I'm not a swimmer. And I understand how much of a workout swimming is, but I'm coming to a person who is a dancer in show choir. And the synchronization and the choreography that goes along with that when you're just on your feet. And then now you add water into it. Those people have my respect. I don't know whether or not it should be an Olympic sport. I think it actually possibly should be, but those people still have my respect. Absolutely. Quest Fanning says, white guilt allows it. Very uninformed white guilt. Yes, very, very uninformed. Horatius is here, says the media is anti-white terrorist arm of the government. Ben Wild says it's no different than how AOC monetizes her social media. I wouldn't mind monetizing my social media. Would you guys pay to see the bullshit that I tweet? Probably not. Actually, I don't really care enough to monetize it. I just want to go on there and say stuff and then get on with my day. Horatius says, whites need representation. We don't have any. No one defends us or cares. Ben Wild self-identifies as a Chinese Apache. Oh, a Korean Apache. Even better. What about a Korean Apache helicopter? Clint Olson says we should not be social engineering anything. Horatius says, no, they aren't. They care about foreigners and the great replacement. Legalized bestiality and pedophilia will be legalized next. Liberalism for you. Well, I had a horrifying theory about the transgender movement that I'm almost afraid to say on YouTube because I'm sure that my FBI agent is going to go back to tell Susan Wojcicki and my YouTube account is going to be gone. I will test the waters in the group chat later on, so Quest Fanning will get to participate in that one, but none of the rest of you will. And if we think that it's easy enough to get said on the air, I will say it on the air, but that actually might be a channel killer. That one might be Susan bait. So we're going to hold off on that one. Ben Wild says if the federal government declared war on dog poop, we'd instantly have a black market for canine feces. Well, I think they need to figure out human poop first, to be completely honest. Because they're having that problem in San Francisco. Ben Wild says NPR, National Poopy Radio. Horatius says it will be completely legal to murder whites soon, too. Ben Wild says the entire town of Covington, Georgia relies on overcharging movie production to film there. Ben Wild says, ending on good news. You mean like Allison Hannigan is single and interested in getting naked with me and a box of jelly donuts. I don't have that good of news because as long as you're watching this program, Allison Hannigan, single or not, will never be interested in getting naked with you because she's going to see you as some sort of evil white supremacist because I don't toe the progressive line like she does. But I've said the same thing about Dove Cameron and Ashley Tisdale, so maybe both at the same time. I do understand where you're coming from. I do. Well, I am likable, kind of. Quest Fanning says, Duncan Lemp, white guy killed by cops in a no-knock. I guess I'm not familiar with that story. Doesn't surprise me, but I'm not familiar with that story. All right, we got to talk about Kim Potter and the mess that's going on in Minnesota right now. So I have weighed whether or not to do this, but I did this on Contemporary, so I think I'm going to be safe to do this. I do want to come back and double check and see what's going on with that. Couple things that went on there, but yeah, we're going to watch the video and we're going to see exactly what happened that started all of this. And if we get age restricted, because they haven't kicked me off for playing this on Contemporary yet, so maybe we'll get age restricted, maybe I'll get kicked off anyway, but let's first look at the video. And then we'll go from there. And if you're sensitive, if your stomach is sensitive, then I would step away for a second, because this is pretty graphic. And now, some of the stuff that goes along with that video, some of the things that we saw with that. First off, the source that I have for this one did bleep out some of the bad stuff. The first one did not, but yeah, some of the bad stuff, the really really grotesque stuff that would have gotten you age restricted on YouTube, was bleeped out for this one. But I mean, we all saw what happened, and this has been going around social media for a little while. And then Chief Gannon put this out almost immediately after this. In fact, I actually found both videos in the same tweet thread. So let's listen to Chief Gannon, and we'll talk a little bit more about what happened.
Purposefully and is trained. As I watched the video and listened to the officer's commands, it is my belief that the officer had the intention to deploy their taser, but instead shot Mr. Wright with a single bullet. This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge that resulted in the tragic death of Mr. Wright. I have asked the BCA to conduct an independent investigation into the shooting and death. Once they are completed, I expect they will submit their findings, independent of me, to the appropriate authorities, the appropriate attorneys that will look and review this case. I'm also stressing that I do hope for the community to be patient and allow this criminal investigation, to be completed as thoroughly as possible, purposefully and as trained.
So, and of course, there was no interest at all in letting any of the investigations put out, at least on the mainstream media's part for this, and we're seeing some of that right now in Minnesota and in the area that goes along around that. So it's well, first off, if anybody wants to go and go in on a joint real estate venture in Minneapolis, we might have to do some cleanup at this point, but we're going to see a lot of property go for pretty cheap at this point, just because there's I can't imagine anybody's going to want to live there at this point. I mean, I wouldn't, because once again, we've seen such a volatile situation in the Minneapolis area, where while they're legitimately in the midst of the trial of one police officer for doing something wrong, which we still have not seen intent or any reasonable belief that he did something wrong. I'm sorry to all the people who think that just because Derek Chauvin is an agent of the state that we need to suspend habeas corpus and trial by jury for him. You guys, you'll be the next one that the government's coming for. I hope you guys know that. But when we look at something like this, and it is definitely something, I don't believe that Kimberly Potter intended to shoot him. Now, the post that goes around social media everywhere when we look at something like this is the fact that if you can't tell the difference between your firearm and your taser, then you shouldn't be carrying either. And I 100% agree with that too. So just to give a little bit more background on what actually happened here, based on what the mainstreams have to say about this, Let me grab this one. From Fox 35, and this is out of Orlando, but still a local story here. Police chief, officer fired gun instead of taser in death of Minnesota man. So what had happened here was Dante Wright was driving along. He had an expired license plate, which that's played somewhat into some of the narrative that goes around with this. He had an expired license plate. He was pulled over for that. While they stopped him for the expired license plate, they ran his ID, obviously, because that's the first thing that the police do once they get in. Even if it comes out, and we talked about this with the assault of the Army lieutenant as well. Even if it turns out that everything is above board, and I told the anecdote that happened to my dad not that long ago. When they bought the Jeep Liberty, and they had the temporary plate for the Jeep Liberty, and it was just stuck in the back window, which is tinted. Nothing in the holder. He didn't have an actual plate on it, so nothing in the holder. And he's driving along, and the police officer sees there's no plate in there, so he comes up. And, by the time he got up there, he looked in the back window, and he saw the plate was in there, or the tag. It's a piece of paper. It was on the inside of the back window. And he came up and said, okay, well, I see the license plate is there. That's what I stopped you for. But as long as I'm here, let me see your ID. Because they'll automatically run that to make sure that you don't have a warrant, that you're not out on papers, that there isn't something else going on in there, that there isn't something else that's going wrong. They'll always run that. It's anytime that you stop, they stop you. It is an unlawful search and seizure. That is true, but they're always going to do it. And remember, they have the guns. So they find out that this kid's got a warrant on him. They go to bring him in, and I mean, this wasn't just, that was the other thing that went around on social media with this. They're trying to convince you, the social media gods, of course, that Dante Wright was in for a simple possession charge that he got while he was in high school, while he was a minor, and then he failed to appear in court because of the commie coup. He was in Wisconsin on an attempted armed robbery charge, which is part of the reason that, that's probably part of the reason that they tried to bring him in, and once he started to struggle, they brought him in with the taser, because you don't know at that point. In fact, I think most other officers they wouldn't even try to do the taser and got it wrong. They would have actually just pulled out the firearm and shot. I think any other officer other than Kim Potter would have emptied a clip into the guy. And realistically, that's the other thing. And we saw that with Jacob Blake as well. Because what did we do? And what did especially the people on the right that were trying to run the thin blue line, what did they all say? And it's the same thing you get for training, whether it's small arms training for a civilian or small arms training for a police officer. Continue to shoot until the threat is neutralized. She didn't do that. She shot once, believing that she had the instrument in her hand that only had one shot in it. And you heard her in the video. Taser, 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 taser. But under the circumstance, given the fact that there was the armed robbery arrest in there that he had failed to appear for court for, that he had a warrant out for his arrest for failing to appear for an armed robbery charge, sitting in the situation, I would have believed that Dante Wright had a firearm in the car. Now, it turned out that he didn't. And that's one of those 20/20 hindsight things. Now, as far as what happened with this afterwards, this was one of the reasons I did want to juxtapose this against the Ashley Babbitt shooting and what happened with that. This was actually one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about that. And that is because we found out the news media leaked Kim Potter's name almost immediately before the investigation was done, before anything else came out about this case. That was one of the first pieces of information that we knew, is who Kim Potter was. But after looking at the investigation, after doing a full 3-month investigation onto the shooting of Ashley Babbitt by a Capitol police officer, they decided he did nothing wrong, and we're never going to know what his name was. We're never going to know his name. That's never going to be released. Because we don't need to know that, because he did nothing wrong. And our investigation proved that. But yeah, and here we sit with Kim Potter. Now, Kim Potter is a long-term police trainer. She's been with the force for, I believe it was 26 years. She was a police trainer, which meant that she was the one that was out there training, which is a big part of the reason that I do have a problem with the fact that she grabbed her firearm instead of her. And I don't believe that the firearm was intentional either. And we talked a bit about that on Contemporary, because she was yelling taser. Because, that's what you need to do. It's the same thing. And I made the comparison, my rural upbringing. I made the comparison about the electric fence. Because if you grab the electric fence by yourself, you're going to get knocked on your ass by the electric fence. If you grab onto the electric fence and then grab your buddy, well, grab your buddy first. Don't grab the electric fence first. But if you grab your buddy and then grab the electric fence, you'll most likely be fine. You'll feel a little bit of a tingle, but your buddy's going to be the one that's knocked on his ass. And he's going to be knocked on his ass even harder than you were. And it's the same thing with the taser. And it's actually a similar amount of voltage, too. The police officer holding on to Dante Wright, after Dante Wright got tased, would have felt the brunt of the electric shock that came from the taser. And Wright would have looked down and said, "Ow, that hurts. What's this poking into me?" So that's why she was yelling that out. Now, Kim Potter has retired at this point. She resigned her commission and post. She basically threw her hands up and said, "I did wrong. Arrest me, because I shouldn't have done this." And you can tell that, too, from the end of the video. What was the last thing you heard her say? "Oh, shit, I just shot him." You knew that there was love, especially given what's going on in Minneapolis right now, just 10 miles away where the trial is going on. I would be going out of my way to make sure that, hell, even if the kid had a gun, even if the kid started opening fire on me as a cop in that situation, I would have this strong nagging in the back of my head to say, maybe I should just let him empty his clip and then go beat him over the head. Magazine, I know. There were some other things that went along with this. One of the things that really, and the chief resigned too, which I'm not 100% sure why. That detail hasn't come out yet. We haven't heard a lot about this, and maybe this was just the fact that I was pretty much on a media blackout for all of Saturday, but we haven't really heard much about this since the charges were announced. But the mayor of Brooklyn Center has come out, and he's asked A.G. Ellison office to lead this, which means that we've got a chance for Ellison to overcharge, and it looks like, I think he did, just based on what I've seen of this. Now, there's no murder charge on this one. I don't think that I think Ellison looked at this and said, well, first off, I think that the Brooklyn Center mayor came out and said, "Okay, Ellison, give us a murder charge." And Ellison looked at this and says, "I'm going to get a murder charge." And he looked at the video and says, "There's no way I can get a murder charge on this. There's no way that's going to happen on this particular one." Kim Potter has been charged with second-degree manslaughter, which I still think is an overcharge. I don't remember. It doesn't look like she had a third degree on top of that, but that is actually where I would have put this one, would be third-degree manslaughter. Unintentional. Negligence that resulted in death, which actually is the same thing I would have put on Chauvin as well. I would have put that same charge on Chauvin. And Chauvin is overcharged too. We'll talk a bit about that. But she's going to go. She's going to do her time. I would not be surprised to find out that Kim Potter pleads guilty to this, just based on the video that I saw. But that hasn't stopped the riots. And that's going to be one of these things, because nobody gives a damn what the situation is behind this. And even Biden came up and says, "Hey man, I want an investigation on what happened on this." Mr. President, the officer confessed and turned herself in. "I want an investigation anyway." But she confessed. Okay. But the riots, and it's not just riots in Minneapolis either at this point. There are riots across the country, including in Portland, and they had another one of their own issues because there was somebody that got shot in Oregon, and I didn't throw this in the show notes once again because I thought that I was going to be doing this with somebody else, but I didn't throw the article in here. But in Oregon, there was a guy that got shot in a police altercation, and the riots and the storms were starting to brew, and the Oregonian, in a since deleted tweet, came out and said, "No, don't riot. He was white. Don't worry." And we wouldn't normally come out with the race of the victim of the shooting, but we know that there's going to be rioting, but there won't be as much rioting if he was white, which is absolutely disgusting in and of itself. But the riots are here. They're all around the U.S. at this point. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. So, according to CBS4, which is a local NBC affiliate, there were 79 people arrested as of the third night of protests, and it looks like they are continuing to go at this point. And we'll talk a bit about Maxine Waters' reaction in one of the riots over the weekend, but I did want to group that with Floyd and Chauvin's trial based on what has come out of this as well. So, and I was able to get the video up into the show notes and the show prep in time to do this. But there have been 79 people arrested, basically defying curfew, throwing rocks at people, burning stuff, arson, looting, the regular kind of stuff. NPR reports that protests grow in Minnesota and around the U.S. over the death of Dante Wright. Protests spread across the country Monday night after the police officials in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, said they believe the officer who shot and killed 20-year-old Dante Wright had intended to use her taser but accidentally fired her handgun as well. Or instead, rather. Looks like we saw some in Brooklyn Center itself, so there's going to be some of that. Looks like there have been some in Portland. Chicago, I believe, had some. There were some in Milwaukee. So various different protests going on around the country. And this is what we're going to see. Now, was this terrible timing? Yes. Do I believe this was intentional? No. And there has been some tinfoil going around over the fact that Kim Potter was a plant as well, based on the fact that this is happening so close to the George Floyd trial, and the Derek Chauvin trial, rather. Not George Floyd isn't on trial, he's dead. But the Derek Chauvin trial, this was happening, because this is like 10 miles away. This is like 10 miles away from where Chauvin is currently being tried. So it's awfully convenient that this happened right where rioters can pretty much just walk over and start rioting in another city and start to burn that down instead, especially given the fact that they burned all the flammable stuff in Minneapolis already. So, but I don't, just based on the video, I don't believe that this was a plant. I think that this was actual legitimate accident. And she turned herself in. Part of the reason you're not hearing so much about it at this point. But the protests continue. Of course, they're mostly peaceful protests if you just ask the people involved. Let's have a listen to one of the things that actually did come out of this. This one.
One final question. What was your decision to issue a dispersal order while they were peacefully protesting in front of the police station? What led to you to issue a dispersal order, and then on the back end of that 10-minute dispersal order, then to issue out CO2 canisters and gas for the crowd?
So,
can you talk to us about that?
just so everybody's clear, I was front and center at the protest, at the riot. We did not.
There was no riot. Don't do that. There was no riot.
There was. So the officers that were putting themselves in harm's way were being pelted with frozen cans of pop. They were being pelted with concrete blocks. And yes, we had our helmets on and we had other protection gear, but an officer was injured, hit in the head with a brick. That was a Hennepin County deputy. He was transported to the hospital. So we had to make decisions. We had to disperse the crowd because we can't allow our officers to be harmed. And I've already answered the question, I believe, about your lighting. I know that's a big deal with you, and I understand that, but I thought I've explained that myself. So I told you it's my decision, and that's why I made that decision. Is there another question? Yes, ma'am.
I mean, the room's tense. I can feel it.
Yes, ma'am.
It wasn't a riot. It wasn't a riot. Our officers were being pelted with soda cans. It was a riot. and it continues to be a riot. And it's interesting how much they're allowed to get. People are allowed to get away with assault when it's going back against police officers. And I've been watching this too with the Chauvin thing all day over on Twitter as well, with people coming out and talking about the fact that libertarians especially, it's not an unlibertarian position to want the state to put a dirty cop in jail. Well, he's not in trial for being a dirty cop. He's on trial for one specific incident. And if you have a complaint about what he did prior to that, then file a police complaint in Hennepin County. It's okay to put him in jail because he's a dirty cop. That is the most anti-judicial statement I've ever heard in my life. Just because he wears the badge, he's suddenly not human. And we see a lot of that too going on with this. So that's what I have to say with what went on in Minneapolis. If you guys have something else to say, let's go check in with the live chat and see what you guys are doing. Then we'll go talk Chauvin for a little bit, which there isn't a lot of information to go on Chauvin just because, well, the mainstreams especially, but a lot of people were very quiet about what was going on in the Chauvin trial just because they didn't want to talk about what the defense was doing, because they want people to be outraged when the not guilty plea comes up. And I'm almost positive that this is going to be a not guilty plea, in spite of the fact that I think there was intimidation of the jurors, and I think there's going to continue to be intimidation of the jurors. But let's see what you guys are doing over here. Let's see. Left off with Quest fanning over here. Horatio says he robbed an elderly woman for $800 at gunpoint. No, he attempted to rob an elderly woman at $800, and he wasn't at gunpoint, but he did have the gun on him, but he didn't point it, so it was not actually an armed robbery at gunpoint. We do have to stay with the facts on this one. It's still deplorable, but it was attempted robbery, not actual robbery. The breakdown with Birkenhoff is here. Ben Wild says, come on, man, an investigation. Like, and your son's laptop, Sloppy Joe? No, you're never going to get that. And it does look like there were some other things that were talked about with Hunter's laptop as well, given the fact that he was on, especially after he had his little interview, which I didn't cover on any of my programs because I didn't care, but I have listened to it as well. And given the fact that he's coming out and saying that he was scouring the carpet and smoking Parmesan cheese because he was looking for more crack, and he needed to have more crack. Because of that, I do have to wonder if he didn't look around because he was out of crack and look at this and say, what do I have that's valuable that I could just sell and get a little bit of money on? And then he sells his laptop for super fucking cheap, and a guy turns around, brings it into a repair shop to get the hard drive wiped, and the repair shop guy notices some shady shit on the hard drive. I do have to wonder if that's not a possibility of what happened with the Hunter laptop. If it's not necessarily that Hunter went out and brought it in to get repaired, or if he just sold it because he needed more fucking crack. No corroboration for this. I don't know if that's true or not, but it would make sense if that happened. Galt is here. Welcome on in, Galt. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Wyatt says they were throwing soup cans. Horatio says the government is anti-white. Dude, I can't read some of this stuff. That's like coming out and saying the 14 words there, dude. I can't do that. I can't read that one either. This one I can, but the rest of your stuff, I can't. Wyatt says also, let's get to $2,000 for the charity. I can go have a quick look and see where it's at. Let me just see here. Especially with no guest over here, I can use this other screen. Let me just see. Let's pop that open and see where that's at real quick. Then we got to talk about some Chauvin stuff. Still at 1887, still at the same. So We want to get to 2,500 because they want me to cut my hair for some reason. I don't know why, but they want me to cut my hair. All right, let's see what else we've got going on here. Horatius also said, and this is the one I can read, by the way. I can't read any of the rest of them out loud. A lot of this stuff is Susan bait, unfortunately. Horatius says, a black guy was just convicted of involuntary manslaughter and given 5 years in prison for savagely beating a 2-year-old white boy to death. Yeah, and that's one of the things that happens off of this. But the other side of it is politically right now, and I'll talk about this when the Chauvin trial, in just a bit when we talk about the Chauvin trial, but a lot of these trials, especially given the social media attention that some of them get, they're not blind trials anymore. They are political trials. And the Chauvin trial is definitely a political trial. It is not a criminal investigation and a trial. It is all political at this point. So we'll circle back for the rest of it. Thanks you guys for coming and hanging out. I know I don't have the pretty girl on the other side of the screen, but thanks you guys for coming and hanging out. Anyway, let's keep going. Actually, I got to grab some articles here, so keep talking amongst yourselves here. Let me, because we got to talk about Chauvin and a little bit of the stuff that went along with that. So I want this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, definitely this one, and this one. All right. So we got to talk about, just what's happened in the last week with the Chauvin trial and everything else that we're seeing off this, because it's been an up and down, and there wasn't a lot of coverage of what went on with the defense, which that's something else that we saw with this, and the fact that this was all televised, but a lot of people didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. I've been going on the highlights. I've been going a little bit deeper into more of the highlights, but I've been going on into some of the highlights here and figuring out, I've been trying to figure out what's been going on with this. So this past week, the prosecution rested, and Derek Chauvin's lawyers came in and started to present the defense for what happened over the past week. And there have been some ups, some downs, some good things, some bad things that went along with this. Hey, I might actually have a co-host here. Let's actually go and figure this out. Let's see if we can get Trent Ortner caught up on what we were doing here. So give me just a second to do some on-air production.
Hey, man.
And just so you know, you're already live. I want you to warn that right off of that, because I had to start without you.
I saw that. I got the wrong message. I saw your message, but I thought that that was Saturday. I didn't realize that this was on Monday, and I completely screwed it all up. I'm so sorry.
Well, we got to get into this anyway, because we're already in progress, and we're talking about Chauvin right now. So If you go back and have a look at the articles that I have up here, I've got a few, and we just started, so you just missed the last chapter.
Okay, all right. Whew.
So looking back at what happened this week, and I was just explaining the fact that there was no real coverage of the defense, mainly because, honestly, I don't think the mainstream media wants to see the defense that's coming off of this. And we're seeing some of the stuff that's actually happened and some of the opinions that are flying around, because everyone seems to believe that they know what the outcome of this trial is going to be, what's going to happen with it, and they've all got a preconceived notion. Somebody's going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Probably come tomorrow. As of this point, the defense is rested, the prosecution is rested, and the jury is currently in deliberation. Now, we did see a couple of facts that came up, including one that I actually included in a video that I included for this, because it was actually devastating to the defense.
Okay. What? I watched some of it. Stop. Sorry, it's my dog. I watched some of it today, and hold on. I'm gonna put her outside. Come on.
Okay, I'll get this video queued up. We'll give Ortner a second here.
I have a German Shepherd, and she is relentless if anything walks past my window. Nice. I watched some of it today, and the prosecution highlighted all the different instances the defense tried to take what happened and kind of what I'm looking for, turn it into something it wasn't. And he made a lot of really good points. I don't know if you watched the final arguments today or not.
I did not watch the final arguments. I did contemporary this morning, and I went back to bed for a little bit. After doing a 24-hour stream on Saturday, I've been trying to catch up on a little bit of sleep here. But going back to last week, this one, I grabbed this video quick because one of the medical examiners actually, I think, was a bit devastating to the defense's side. So let's have a listen to what Dr. David Fowler had to say from this. And you should be able to hear this right through Zoom. So
okay,
because I've got the sound share on already. Let's have a listen to this. If I can find it. There it is.
So in my opinion, Mr. Floyd had a sudden cardiac arrhythmia due to his atherosclerotic and hypertensive heart disease, or you can write that down multiple different ways. During his restraint and subdual by the police, or restraint by the police. And then his significant contributory conditions would be, since I've already put the heart disease in part 1, he would have the toxicology, the fentanyl and methamphetamine. There is exposure to a vehicle exhaust, so potentially carbon monoxide poisoning, or at least an effect from increased carbon monoxide in his bloodstream, and paraganglionoma, or the other natural disease process that he has. So all of those combined to cause Mr. Floyd's death.
So with that, and what I took away from that when I listened to that is that's probably devastating to the defense at that point, because that does show that the holding down was the factor that contributed to Floyd's death, which I don't believe that it's there yet. I think there's enough reasonable doubt, just based on everything that I've seen over the past week. I think there's enough reasonable doubt to acquit.
Yeah, I was thinking that today when I was catching the rest of it. I was trying to run the scenarios in my head, like, okay, if they got him for manslaughter, what are they going? We're going to be the determining factors of that. And if they got him, I don't think they're going to get second-degree murder or third degree. I think the most they're going to get is manslaughter, and that's going to cause an eruption of violence in Minneapolis.
Well, the second-degree side of the manslaughter, I think, is 50-50. Now, if they'd have gone third-degree manslaughter, I think that would have been a guaranteed conviction.
Right.
That, I think, would have been an easy one to go and grab. But the second, a lot of that's going to and it's all over now, so we're all just hindsighting this one, but a conviction on second-degree manslaughter is going to depend on how the jury saw the cause of death. Right. Because there were two competing narratives to that. One of them was the heart arrhythmia and the heart attack, and the other one was asphyxiation.
Right.
So it's going to come down to what the jury sees off of that one, and I think that's the only way we're going to see a conviction, is if they take the asphyxiation as the primary cause.
And I don't think there was enough evidence to prove that the drugs in his system were of a fatal level either when they did his blood work post-mortem. I think that they proved that he had it in his system, but he wasn't anywhere near overdose levels.
Now, I've seen other reports that said he had 3 times overdose levels, but there's reasonable doubt in that. Now, and Floyd's not on trial either. That's one thing that we have to keep in mind. He's not the one that's on trial. So it's the defense's job to to pull the reasonable doubt. And that's been one of the things that scared me the most about this. It's not whether or not Derek Chauvin goes to jail. It's not whether or not he gets out of jail. It's whether or not the court system continues to be blind and you still have presumption of innocence. That's worried me more than the outcome of this trial.
Really? Yeah, I mean, that's a solid point. That's a real solid point. I was thinking today, too, you know, when the jurors went back there, they have to know how important it is that, not important that to be right about it, but important it is to give a good enough verdict that's going to make the people feel at least okay and in peace, because a lot of what they decide is going to decide whether or not Minneapolis and the surrounding areas just completely erupt into violence. I was just watching a protest just now, the one that's going on there, and they've already got like 2,000 people marching around the Hennepin County Law Center or Square area that they called it.
Oh yeah, they've been gathering there since, the pretrial stuff began.
Yeah.
So you know that's going to happen, and one of the things that comes off of that, and me being formerly an avid Red Sox fan, what happens when your sports team wins? Let's look at another sports team, not even just the Red Sox, even though I was there for the 2007 win. But look at what happens when the Blackhawks win. What happens to Chicago? If the Blackhawks lose, Chicago riots and burns. If the Blackhawks win, Chicago riots and burns.
Really? I didn't realize that. I'm from Minnesota, but I don't think I didn't know that they were that. I knew that some sports they were. I just didn't realize that the Blackhawks were that important there.
It's the only good team that Chicago has.
Yeah, that's true.
Since the Bulls went downhill.
The Bears were good like 30 years ago.
Yeah. So the Blackhawks just win left and right. They absolutely do.
They always gave us trouble in the playoffs. Every year when we got the Blackhawks, I knew we weren't going to win. It's just we just can't beat them in the playoffs.
And a lot of what we're going to see here is going to be the same thing. It's in Minneapolis. If we get guilty on all three counts, Minneapolis is going to burn. If we get acquittal on all three counts, Minneapolis is going to burn. It's just going to be whether they're angry when they're burning or celebratory when they're burning.
I think if they don't, I think there's going to be violence in a negative light regardless of the verdict, because the way that I see it, the people want blood. Like right now, they want his blood. They want him dead. That is the only, an eye for an eye. That's the only thing that's going to completely pacify them in any way, shape, or form. To maybe have happy riots instead of mad riots. I don't know.
Well, and this one too. No, it's not this video I want to do. It's this one, because Maxine Waters decided to put her toe in the water over the weekend. And that actually had an effect on today's proceedings as well. I'm sure you saw the video for that too. But if this video will ever fucking load, there it is. So let's listen to what Maxine had to say, and then we'll talk a bit about what that meant as we were going into the end of this.
Okay.
Reform. And so, yes, I would like to see the bill in Congress pass on police reform, but I know that the right wing, the racists, are opposed to it, and I don't know what's going to happen to it, but I know this: we've got to stay in the street, and we've got to demand justice.
As a black man, despite all of the efforts, I feel like nothing changes. And George Floyd is waking so many people up, yet nothing has happened despite the rhetoric. Like what needs to happen that's different this year than all the years before?
We're looking for a guilty verdict. We're looking for a guilty verdict, and we're looking to see if all of the fault that took place and has been taking place after they saw.
Just a little bit of an interruption on that one, but that would be a lot easier to hear her if she wasn't wearing that goddamn mask.
I know. I was just thinking that too. And her eye protection she's got on.
If nothing does not happen, then we know that we've got to not only stay in the street, but that we've got to fight for justice. But I am very hopeful, and I hope that we're going to get a verdict that will say guilty, guilty, guilty. And if we don't, we cannot go away.
And not just manslaughter, right? I mean...
Oh, no, not manslaughter. No. This is guilty for murder. I don't know whether it's in the first degree, but as far as I'm concerned, it's first degree murder.
Congresswoman, what happens if we do not get what you just told? What should the people do? What should protesters on the street do?
I didn't hear you.
What happens?
What should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
What do you think about this curfew tonight?
So, yeah, a lot of stuff there. And some of what she said has been taken out of context a lot. I've noticed when, just looking back and listening to the replays and the armchair lawyers that have talked about this one. She said that, of course, she said murder in the first degree. Right. And then the next question that gets asked is, okay, well, what happens if we don't get what you just said? Now, that's been interpreted by a lot of people over on social media and even regular media to come out and say that, well, she said that if we don't get a first-degree murder verdict of guilty in here, then to burn the streets, and that's not even on the table. That's not technically true, though, because she didn't say only for first-degree murder.
You know, what I think the scariest thing that I took from this is kind of what you said a little bit ago, is she's not acting for due process or it to run its course. She wants him guilty. Mm-hmm. While I believe he's guilty of killing George Floyd, I don't understand how. See, that's to me that's instigating, and it's. I mean, I'm all for them getting mad and rioting if there's a not guilty plea. I don't blame them. It's gotten to a point in our country where peaceful protest and process is getting us arrested or worse. And so I'm from Minnesota, and I don't see, the people are angry and the people are sick of dealing with this crap, and it's gotten to the point to where it's boiling over, and I don't see any way around that from like here on out with our country. It's going to continue to get more and more violent.
Yeah, and I mean, we are moving out towards peaceful divorce, but this particular statement did have an effect in the court, and while it didn't actually get it happen, there was a request to have a mistrial based on just that statement that Maxine said. Let's have a listen. Yeah.
I'm aware that Congresswoman Waters was talking specifically about this trial and about the unacceptability of anything less than a murder conviction, and talk about being confrontational, but you can submit the press articles about that. This goes back to what I've been saying from the beginning. I wish elected officials would stop talking about this case, especially in a manner that is disrespectful to the rule of law and to the judicial branch and our function. I think if they want to give their opinions, they should do so in a respectful and in a manner that is consistent with their oath to the Constitution, to respect a co-equal branch of government. Their failure to do so, I think, is abhorrent, but I don't think it has prejudiced us with additional material that would prejudice this jury. They have been told not to watch the news. I trust they are following those instructions, and that there is not in any way a prejudice to the defendant beyond the articles that we're talking specifically about the facts of this case. A congresswoman's opinion really doesn't matter a whole lot. Anyway, so motion for mistrial is denied.
So that was the favorite part. The congresswoman's opinion doesn't mean anything.
And I mean, I can understand where the frustration comes in, because you look at that and now you're like, okay, well, if I rule the wrong way, is my house going to be next? And I do have to
or his career. I mean, if he hands down a sentence to a mistrial, it's going to be a mark on his career for doing so. He's supposed to be the regulator of all of these different variables that go on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was one of the other things that kind of frightened me about this trial too, was I believe it was this past Wednesday, the judge Cahill came out and said, well, I'm an agent of the state, which means that I have to take the interests of the state into consideration. No, you don't.
Right.
You're a judge. You're impartial.
Yeah.
Those words are terrifying.
That's what's scary about the way that we elect our judicial system, our lower level courts, because if the rule of thumb that's happening with politicians, where they are more focused on their next campaign than actual stuff that they're supposed to be working on for their constituents, judges are already starting to kind of go that direction, because I've seen, especially in my local area, judges that will not prosecute, but not lay down bad judgment on people that donate money to their campaigns or help them get elected. There's been a whole bunch of corruption stuff go on here, and where I live in Texas now, in McLennan County, especially with like our former district attorney. He with I don't know if you heard about it, but the Twin Peaks shooting, when they had a big biker shooting, like 7 or 8 people got killed, and a cop instigated that. Like they went back and proved it. The cop instigated the shooting, an undercover cop, and the district attorney tried to cover it up.
Yeah, I mean, cops are not innocent in any of this either, and that's been one of the consistent things I've said, because I know that, especially from a lot of the libertarian audience that I have, both from my organic grassroots growth and that I've carried over from Elaine joining my channel as well, is the fact that there is a strained relationship with police because they are an agent of the state. And, I'm a car guy. Of course, I have a strained relationship with police. I know what it means. And I've quoted Top Gear when they did the Cop Cars episode. Adam Carolla said it best in that episode. You know what it means when you see the white headlights with the amber in the middle behind you, especially when you modify cars. You know what that means, and you're probably going to get some sort of ticket at some point off of this.
Right. You're going to get the days of warnings for tickets are over. Like they used to, like especially when I started driving, I got pulled over a couple times, but the cop was like, you weren't supposed to be speeding. I was going like 5 over, and I think I got a ticket once, or I got another warning for expired registration when I was in the Marine Corps. I didn't realize that my stuff was expired. But the days of that are over. Cops don't write warnings anymore. It's either hit it or quit it.
The only time I got popped in Minnesota, I got a ticket automatically, but I could usually talk into a warning a couple times over on the Wisconsin side. And you kind of know the area I grew up in, too. I don't know if that was the same area you grew up in, but that's... You know where I was at, because we talked about that a little bit off mic.
Right.
So.
I haven't had any issues there. But it wouldn't surprise me, honestly. My dad's a cop in Hennepin County.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's been there for about 20 years now. Waiting on retirement.
Nice. But, I mean, that's what I have, and we're going to see, and I've actually been kind of watching a little bit on some of the updates on Twitter as well, to see if the verdict is going to come down while I'm on air. Just to kind of see if it pops up.
Did it say it was going to be today? Because I was trying to look to see where, if there was any guesses or not. I didn't know if the jury was going to deliberate and then tomorrow issue the statement, or if they would actually play it at night. I'm not really sure how that works.
Well, it's going to the jury's going to come out pretty well as soon as they finish deliberating, which could take a couple days. I don't think this is going to take more than a week. I think we're going to have this by the end of the week.
Yeah, I agree there. I think so too. I wouldn't be surprised if it was tomorrow, honestly.
So yeah, and I'm probably going to say the same thing. I think it's going to be tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, Wednesday, I think it's going to be one of the latest. If it goes past Friday, I'm going to be very, very surprised.
Right. It goes back to what we were saying a little bit ago. Like as a juror, the the power, you know what kind of power you wield right now. You have the power to make a decision that will affect hundreds of people's lives in the next couple days. Like, regardless, the people that are going to come out of this from collateral damage, or if they're going to keep pushing farther out into the suburbs. Like, my parents live in Andover, and I've been, checking in with them to make sure that nothing was being, it was going any farther north. But, they hold the power for a decision that will impact hundreds, maybe even thousands of people's lives.
Yeah, they do.
And it's not just the family.
Well, that's what I have on the trial right now, and basically we're kind of stuck now until we see more of the stuff here. But I want to see if we can power through some of the rest of this stuff here, because I took way too long when I was talking about the other shooting, the other Hennepin County one that happened this week, which I did that already before you popped on.
Okay.
And I spent way too long talking about that one. But let's power through the rest of what's on the document here, starting with Project Veritas happened this week. They released a video, one of their famous Sting videos. The details surrounding the video was they set up a Tinder date with one of the, I believe he is the production engineers for CNN, basically bragging. What's that?
I thought he was, maybe he was a production engineer. Okay, yeah, I think he maybe, but I think he was one of the managers. He was one of the production, managers, or tech manager. I can't remember what it was.
Technical director. I just went back and looked through the New York Post article.
Okay, and I was thinking there was tech in there somewhere.
Yeah. So let me get that loaded up here, and we will see what that sounded like. I did a lot of video for this episode. I didn't do a lot of picture. I did a lot of video for this one.
Cool. I have the feed up on my phone in front of me, so I'm kind of watching as.
You had to teach Elaine how to do that.
She doesn't know how.
She doesn't do that. No. She always says that she can hear the audio, but she can't see the video.
See, I'm really deaf. I can't hear. When I was in the military, my hearing's gone. So I have to either turn my head or get close. And I have a MacBook or an iMac, and so the volume's extremely loud.
All right, let's have a listen to this though.
Okay.
I think we got him through this term. We would always show shots of him jogging, him in aviator shades, and you paint him as a young geriatric.
We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. So I think that's probably it.
Look what we did. We got Trump out. I am 100% going to say it. And I 100% believe it, that if it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have got voted out.
Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
Do you think it's going to be just a lot of fear, climate?
Yeah, fear sells. Fear sells. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
And what is it you do?
So I'm gonna, just for time, I'm gonna stop it at that point off there. But that was a full 8-minute video of several other things that got talked about in all this, and I mean, he's right.
Yeah. And oh my God, I can't imagine being him right now and being oh, fuck, they got me. Because everything he said was true, and it's just everything that everybody's had on their minds, thinking without any actual real concrete evidence that's how CNN was working. But it's true.
Yeah, we all know what CNN is and what they do here, but unfortunately at this point, now the Veritas Twitter account has already been permanently suspended. That happened last year.
Yeah.
Well, we had this pop up over the weekend as well. James O'Keefe III, account suspended.
Yeah. Yep.
So they got his personal account too off of this one. And I mean, you knew it was coming. And we hear about the vertical monopoly all the time. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that Twitter was coming out and sending a message and saying, we're going to protect CNN at all costs.
Yeah. I mean, have you been deplatformed yet from any social media?
Surprisingly, no.
See, I have. I'm completely banned from Instagram and Facebook. and probably WhatsApp. I don't know. I got banned last July, like when the Great Zuckening is what they called it. I just started using Twitter like when I started the caucus. I didn't use Twitter until then.
Yeah, and it is one of those things. For me, it's marketing, but I don't know how I haven't been deplatformed yet either, because I've said some of the naughty words on this channel.
Yeah.
And hell, the generational gap, who was a smaller channel than mine, got dinged.
Really?
For talking about
like just curse words?
No, you know that specific conspiracy theory that they had out of DC that involved a certain parlor where you get cheese type pie and the door and a fence.
Yeah. Where they sent in, I can't remember, Probosec or whatever went in there from that conservative news network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of that gate thing. They got kicked off of their YouTube stream for that, which they didn't get suspended or anything. They just got kicked off that particular stream.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow. We're getting to a point where we all have a social score, and these big platforms are going to start. I'm surprised I'm still on Twitter, because I know that I've posted some spicy stuff, and people are, it's going to come to a point where they take us off there too, because they hold in their abilities to seclude people. They say, I get it. It's not necessarily a First Amendment right, because they're private companies, but on the same hand, when I had my Facebook, I had 5,000 friends. I had all kinds of contacts and stuff through Facebook that I lost, that I didn't get back because I relied on Facebook too much.
Yeah. And, that was one of the things that, goes along with that too. And you go back and see what O'Keefe did on this particular video, and honestly, the other direction, people would be crying about Me Too and this, that, and the next thing. If it was some dude that was recording some good-looking girl on a date. But yeah, to go back to what you said, I know why I'm not kicked off of Twitter or any of the others, because I don't get emotional, and I don't post the spicy stuff. I go in, I pick fights. I look for fights with mostly left-wing people, but I don't get excited about it. I don't throw insults or curses or anything else. I just disarm everything that they have to say in a completely deadpan fashion, and then walk away and move on with my day.
I didn't get like any kind of. The most I ever got was a 24-hour ban was the most I ever got on Facebook, and then my account was completely banned. I can't I am IMEI and IP blocked from all my devices.
That's interesting. But
yeah, but it's I don't know. That's a good video though of the guy, the tech. I thought I remembered that he did get fired, didn't he? Or
I did not see if he got fired. I know that he was suspended, but I don't know if that is a permanent suspension at this point.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's what happened to O'Keefe. Let's talk a bit about border, because if I avoid the border topic anymore on my Monday show, you're gonna have to start calling me CNN. Because I've cut it for time numerous times, but we've got to talk a little.
To talk about, man, there really is. There's so much going on in the world right now.
Well, and I think part of that is based on the fact that they're trying to keep attention off of both the border crisis, which Biden finally came out this week and said it was a crisis, and the Chauvin trial. They wanted everyone paying attention to so many other things that were going on here. And I am going to start with a little bit of humor on this one, because Representative Steve Scalise, of being shot by the Bernie Sanders fame, put this image out. Where is it? There it is. Of a milk carton with Kamala Harris's face on the side saying, "Missing at the border." Because she refuses to go down there. And, old Sleepy Joe tends to do the same thing. He's not going down there either, because, well, if I go down there, man, well, that all the attention's going to be paid to me, and now what's actually going on, so I don't want to take anything out of the air, man. Don't make me do stuff.
I can't believe people are happy with him being in office versus Trump. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of shit that Trump did that really.
Yeah, there was.
But he didn't do a terrible job until the end, like until he started like trying to circumvent our laws with his stuff. Like he like for vets, like he did a lot for us. Like with the VA, is a completely different organization than I've ever known it to be. And it like they actually take care of us now.
Yeah. No, I understand that entirely too. And there was a lot of bad stuff. I actually, and you can go back on my channel, even though there's a bunch of content between there. I made an endorsement video of Trump, and I titled it, "I've endorsed Trump, kicking and screaming." Because I wasn't going to vote for anybody. I was, in spite of the fact that I host a web show with Joe Jorgensen's basically Twitter avatar for the entire campaign. I was not a fan of Jorgensen. I didn't care for her. She had a lot of good ideas, just didn't have the substance or the plan to get the substance behind them.
Right.
She's a nice I guarantee she's a nice lady. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with her, but as far as the plan and the implementation, I didn't see it there.
I didn't either.
There's no goddamn way I could have voted for Biden.
No, God no.
The most popular president ever.
There just isn't. Like, this is his third time running. He was the vice president. He's been in office for.
It was his fourth time running.
Oh, was it? I thought he only. Okay, so it was fourth time running for president. He was vice president and was garbage then. Everybody knew how much of a creep he was then, and he's been a senator since the fucking 70s. I mean, what can you think of one thing that Joe Biden has done between like that he can put his name on, like he was responsible for this?
The 1994 crime bill.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
Basically, it's a 3 strikes law. It was extended enforcement for black people for drug possession.
Oh, no shit. So he was the author to that?
Yeah, he was the author to that.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's his crowning achievement.
Whew. And then we have Kamala Harris, who everybody knows her record with the criminal justice system as a prosecutor.
Oh yeah, she used the 1994 crime bill to get cheap labor for California.
Yeah, now that you said that, that makes sense. Yeah. She had to have. That's the only thing that she could have done.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's that, and the fact that Harris is missing on the border. Now, Harris is going down to the Northern Triangle, I believe, coming up this week to go try and negotiate financially with Guatemala, Costa Rica, I think is the other one. No, Costa Rica is an island. What's the other one that's down there?
Like
El Salvador. No, that's an island too. What? Why am I blanking on my southern? I am blanking on my geography down there right now. But she is going down there to talk about and to talk with the heads of state of these various nations to see if she can find a financial way to stop the migrants from coming across Mexico to coming to our border. Because that'll work. What happens when you give a bunch of money to a corrupt government? How much of that gets down to the people and supplies to the people?
It's not. Like she knows it's not. It's to make yourself look better. On face value, and be able to circumvent the question that's going of why are these kids still in cages?
But that's what they think they need to do is go throw a bunch of money to this problem. And my friend, the R-rated conservative, has actually pointed out the fact that she's going down there to negotiate the same way she negotiated herself into office.
Why can't they just throw money at a program to expedite the citizenship process for these people, or the naturalization process to where they can become legal residents? Why would you go to some other country and spend the money that it's not going to do anything? Even if they tell you that it's going to that, it's not going to that, because they spend that money however they want to spend it. It'll probably be a payoff to those heads of state, because they'll just be exactly. Well, we got you, but they'll take the money.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to go into the pockets of the drug lords and the warlords and the government officials, and the people are still going to be in the economic crisis that goes along with that. But, and I part with a lot of libertarians on the border issue because I am a border hawk.
Right.
Just based on what I see it would do to the wages in this country. And I understand, I've heard the arguments from the other side, and I understand why it's part of the LP platform to have the open border. I do understand that. But I look at this, and even I am on board with saying, like you said, for the DACA especially, get these kids out of the DACA program. The DACA is the most disgusting piece of legislation, or not even legislation, it's an executive order, that I've ever seen in my life, because these people are sitting in a state of immigration limbo. They're neither legal nor illegal when they're sitting in DACA. They're just a pawn.
Yep. And it sucks because, people complain about the biggest argument that I've heard from people that don't want open borders is they bring crime, or they live on welfare programs. Most of the people that I know that are, or people that I know that were illegal immigrants, or maybe still are, they don't take anything from the social programs because they don't have any way to claim it.
Well, yeah, that's my idea on that too. Is it's the same thing, because I know that they're not doing that. I just know that once you import the entire third world, your wages for everybody goes down because your amount of labor goes up.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. It's simple finances to me. It has nothing to do with anything else. These are okay people. Most of them are looking to come over here to work.
Right.
And get a better life, but.
And like them coming up, like a lot of them do the jobs that we as Americans are too snobby to do. We think that it's below us now, and they have no problem doing it and being happy for it because they got freedom. But then they can also, their kids can go to college. They can completely change the cycle of their family from poverty and they can become something different. That's what the American dream is.
Well, and I look at that too. It is a hard thing, and I want to have the American dream out there where people can come off and do this, but to actually bring up what you had just said too. They come over, they do the jobs the Americans are too snobby to do. And I remember, especially Republican politicians and Republican podcasters, like Michael Knowles is really big about saying this, and he says, we're going to go in and the Biden administration is just going to import new voters so they never lose an election again. These people are not going to be voters.
No.
Because he'd have to legalize them to do that, and his big business buddies are going to lose out on a slave class.
Right.
He's never going to give amnesty to these people.
No.
Because they'll go in and take $2 an hour to do something that the rest of us have to get $15 an hour for.
Right.
And if they complain about it, they're deported. He's never going to legalize these people.
No. People think that the left are a party for progress and change, but they're not. Like they're the exact opposite. The stuff that they are so this whole culture of being so woke is so extreme that it's become a form of fascism. It's a form like they call everybody else Nazis, but they themselves are more totalitarian than any other group because they don't allow you to say what you believe or have an opinion.
Mm-hmm, exactly. All right, we are up on the clock, and I got a couple other things that I want to get to just real quick before we go. And I've got a little bit of surprise stupidity for the end of this, which you've probably seen, but I still want to share it with the rest of the audience as well. The good news, we are pulling out of Afghanistan, apparently. Given our current president's war record, I will believe that when I see it because he has never seen a war effort that he hasn't put his name on in 47 years. But according to the AP, Joe Biden says a hard date. We're going to get everybody out by September 11th, 2021, because that's not the most pandering fucking thing you could do.
That's impossible. Like there's no way that's possible. Like what? Hold on. Let me look what the troop level is right now.
I believe it is in mid thousands, like 1,500-ish or so. The last time I looked.
Because if that's the case, then I don't know, maybe, but it takes month, like it takes like 6 weeks for a battalion to go to Afghanistan from America.
Mhm.
So even if they started right now, if it's where it's at, where I think it's at right now, it says at least 8,600 troops. So
It's way more than I thought it was.
and it just, they said that 1,000 more troops just got there. So there's 9,600 troops, almost 10,000 troops, and the amount of time it would take to get the infrastructure back, to get all of the actual stuff turned over to whoever's going to take it, unless they're just going to pull out completely and just get in planes and leave and just completely fuck over the whole country of Afghanistan for one last time before they leave.
Oh shit! They've been doing that for 20 years. That's not going to be a surprise.
Yeah, I know. I was there. I was there in the late, around 2009 and 2010, and yeah, nothing's changed. Every president every couple years is saying the troops are coming home, and they're not. They don't come home. There's too much money for them to lose if they come home, because Afghanistan produces 80% of the world's opium products or opiate products, and that's a multi-billion-dollar, maybe trillion-dollar business in the pharmaceutical world.
I gotta say thank you to Galt here, because he's just throwing donations at me over on DLive, so thank you for that.
Nice.
Good God. Even a Ninja Genie. Galt's got some DLive money over there. Thank you, Galt. Well, yeah, and that was one of the things that I drew criticism with Jorgensen for as well when I talked, when I tweeted back and forth with her on Twitter. Yes, it's nice that you want to go in there and say that, okay, well, I'll just bring the troops home. I'll do it right away. Okay, how are you going to do that? And all the people out there, well, by being commander-in-chief.
Right.
Okay, the person who funds getting the troops out of there, or the people that fund getting the troops out of there, are getting big-ass kickbacks from Raytheon to keep everybody there.
Yeah. And all the contractors that are there,
Yeah.
That's another billion-dollar industry. Like, yeah, hell no.
But apparently we're doing that. And
a war economy is the only thing that's keeping us afloat, I think. If we bring everybody home, I think the economy will tank, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not,
yeah, that's
already. Sorry.
I have actually looked through what came up with the crash of 2008, 2009. I've looked at all the variables that led into that, all the financials that were stacking up and starting to fall apart. And I honestly believe that was supposed to happen and should have happened in 2002. But we started getting combat pay running through the country.
Yeah.
And it held it up for another 7 years.
Like it was like a like Y2K, but it was 2 years late.
Well, it wasn't necessarily Y2K. It was just the fact that the housing market was starting to bubble and pressure, and sales were coming down off everything. That was why I have no idea how old you are. So if you're 34, okay, so you're just a touch younger than me. So you remember back then after September 11th, that was the first thing the commercial, and George Carlin talked about this too. Go out and buy a new car. It's a jewelry you can't afford, otherwise the terrorists win.
Yeah, and freedom fries, and yeah.
People were out spending money, and that held it up for another 7 years, and then it crashed probably even harder than it was about to.
Yeah, that housing bubble was bad. I know people that had really nice houses that both lost their job and then lost their houses.
The next one's going to be worse.
Yeah, it's going to be much, much worse. Our debt to income ratio has surpassed it now, so it's just a matter of time before somebody calls in that debt.
All right. The last thing that I want to touch on here before we do Surprise Stupidity, check with the live chat, and head back out of here, I want to talk about the vaccines that have been disproved now from use, and this chip. Well, this is the first thing I want to talk about, is this chip that the Pentagon came out with. So, reading from WKBN out of Youngstown, Pentagon researchers develop under-the-skin sensor that detects COVID infection. Pentagon researchers have created a sensor that can detect COVID-19 infection in the blood. The sensor, which is in the late stage of testing, was unveiled by retired Colonel Matt Hepburn, an Army infectious disease physician, during a segment of 60 Minutes on Sunday. Basically, the subdermal implant is reportedly a tissue-like gel that was engineered to continually test the wearer's blood. What it's supposed to do is supposed to indicate if you have an infection of any kind, not just COVID-19, but any kind of infection. And basically, it was compared to a check engine light, per se.
So, are you religious at all?
A little bit.
So, do you believe in in the Christian religion? Do you believe that, like, the mark of the beast, that it comes in Revelations?
I believe in it, but I don't think it's any of the stuff that they've been talking about with the vaccine or this chip.
Because I grew up I'm not Pentecostal anymore, but I grew up Pentecostal, and I grew up with that constantly being talked about, and I've always wondered what it was going to be. And I remember back in like the 90s sometime, my grandpa and I were at the VA. My grandpa was a pastor, he Pentecostal pastor for 40 something years, but we were at the VA, and he was looking at a Natural Geographic magazine, and it had a guy's hand. And it had a tiny microchip. It was like right when they started making the small microchips. Mm-hmm. And my grandpa was like, "Oh my goodness, it's the mark of the beast. That's what it is." Don't get me wrong. My grandpa was an amazing person, and he was very, very, very wise. But just that stigma of it being a chip has stuck with me since then. And so, like, I don't know if it's just,
Well, that's one of the things that go with this too. And I mean, you find all the conspiracy theorists around here, around this world right now, with everything with going on with the vaccine, with the DNC, with the RNC. There's conspiracy theorists everywhere. This world has become filled with Dale Gribbles right now. And the Pentagon didn't need to give them ammunition.
Right.
That's all I can see from this is ammunition for these people who are already on edge.
If that's what it is, and okay, religion aside, what worries me about that more than anything is that the state is going to want it. So instead of it just being something that you can elect to get for if you want to, now if it's going to be like the passport, it's going to end up being mandatory for everybody to have. And who knows what kind of chip it is? Who knows what they're even giving us in the vaccines, man? Like, They say it's what it is, but judging from their track record, telling the truth, it's not that fucking great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, and well, it's the same thing with the vaccine and the fact that now the Johnson & Johnson is off the market because of a few blood clots, which I think there's something else going on, because Johnson & Johnson, especially living as close to Racine, Wisconsin as I did for as long as I did, and knowing a bunch of people that work for Johnson & Johnson, for 6 doses out of 1,100 in one site and 8 out of 2,400 in another site, they wouldn't have pulled the vaccine. Not for that. So there's something else going on with that. But the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. What's that?
That's all they're telling us. That's all they're telling us it was.
The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is off the market for blood clot concerns, and I believe the Pfizer-BioNTech is being taken off the market in Europe only as well for the same concerns.
Is that the one that the Norwegian or Swedish government official took when she completely passed out? Just went catatonic and just fell to the ground?
That was AstraZeneca.
Oh, okay. And that one's still good?
That one is off the market in certain European countries. AstraZeneca, I believe, is off the market in all European countries. Johnson & Johnson's off the market here.
Okay.
And, you go back to the same thing. You talked about the state requiring stuff. Now, I've been of the sound mind, because I was actually, when they first started talking about the vaccine, considering getting it. I was considering it when they first started talking about it, saying that it would be there right away. Because I'm like, okay, this is cool, and then I'll be able to go do stuff again and not have to worry.
Right.
But the more they started talking about mandatory, you have to get it, you have to do the passport, you have to get this to engage in everyday life. I'm like, no, there's something else going on here. And it's not just vaccine. I don't know what's going on, but good ideas are rarely mandatory.
No, and absolutely. That's a very good way to put that. I've never heard that before. Good ideas are rarely mandatory. That's a hell of a saying, because it's true. I have the antibodies in my system So I don't need to get it that I know of. My doctor has told me that I didn't need to get it. But yeah, as long as they're trying to make you do something like that, it makes you wonder. It makes like what's the end game here?
Well, and Jen Psaki even got up on the high horse. I almost did this as surprise stupidity, but then I didn't know enough about you to know how you would react to this one. But I knew that Elaine would be pulling her hair out for this one. And trust me, I still have something worse to come after this one here. But Jen Psaki actually got up on the stage and talked about, and I didn't load the video in for this one, I should have. But she's talking about how they're having problems messaging to conservatives about how to take the vaccine. So now they're going to reach out and talk to NASCAR, the Deadliest Catch, and the 700 Club to try and get the messaging put onto their programs to go and take the vaccine.
Mm.
And I heard this, I'm like, you disingenuous cunt. That is that is the most horrifying way you could put something like that. We're not getting our message across, so we're gonna have some other people come and talk to these dumb fucking hicks to get them to take it instead. And like every conservative watches NASCAR.
That's so condescending.
Yeah. Actually, I can still pull the audio off this, I think, because I don't have the video loaded into OBS, but the Daily Wire put the audio or the video on their website, and I can't put the image up, but I can put the sound up. Let's listen to this.
Yeah.
Also investing $3 billion to states and community-based organizations to strengthen vaccine confidence in the highest risk and hardest hit communities. And often people think of that as just black and brown communities, and that is not. As you've noted, that is also conservative communities, white evangelicals. It's a range of communities around the country. What we've found to be most effective is to work with these local organizations. So faith-based organizations, community health organizations, civic leaders, and others who can really get this message deeply in communities. We've also had a number of our members of our COVID team, from Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins, participate in a range of media interviews. You know, an example is Dr. Collins participated in the 700 Club. Dr. Nunez-Smith hosted a faith leaders roundtable. We're also we've run PSAs on the Deadliest Catch. We're engaged with NASCAR and Country Music TV. We're looking for a range of creative ways to get directly connected to white conservative communities. We won't always be the best messengers, but we're still trying to meet people where they are, but also empower local organizations. And just quick follow. Also invest.
How is that empowering local organizations other than to push them to do, like, what about these businesses that owners don't want to enforce that kind of stuff? You know, it's their right to not have to put required masks inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't, and that was because we have signs up where I work all over the place of mask required, mask required. I haven't worn, when it first started out, because I work alone and I work at a dealership, but I work alone in the shipping and receiving warehouse. So, I mean, it's not a big deal for me to not have to have one on. So I have the gator. Do I have the gator over here? No, I went to the store earlier. But I got a neck gaiter. And up until the first of the year, I just wore it around my neck and, never pulled it up.
Right.
And after the first of the year, I just stopped trying. And you know what? Send me home if you have a problem with it.
I did too. Like I bought a neck gaiter, and that's what I was using at first. But then once I got my blood work back, I did some labs, and they told me that I had the antibodies in my blood. And I was like, well, then why am I going to wear a mask still? Mm-hmm. To make somebody else feel okay? Like, no, I don't need to wear a mask to make you feel safe.
Update on that, they have not sent me home yet. In fact, they won't let me go home if I need to.
So apparently that's not that big of a deal.
Apparently not. Apparently they really want me there. Yeah, I just stopped trying after the first of the year, and if they get pissed off at it, they'll send me home and I'll play video games and study for my real estate license.
I bet you don't get a whole lot of human interaction compared to like the actual salesmen and stuff.
No, I don't.
Right. That's probably a lot of the reason why. You don't have customers coming up there and telling, because that's what you would be worried about with a business. I think is not not the cop seeing you, but having a customer come in and then complain and inform on you. Like that happened a lot of times. There was an incident here in Waco where a cop lied on his body camera and like was was aggressive with this bystander because he wasn't wearing a mask and like tried to arrest him. And then everybody else showed up and his sergeant showed up. He was like, "No, release him." He was like, and then he goes in there and plays his act like, "All right, what should you have done? I'm gonna write you a warning. You know, I'm gonna be a nice guy." When it wasn't true at all. If his superiors hadn't showed up, he would have taken him to jail for not wearing a fucking mask.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know who CJ Grisham is, but he did a video on it.
I'll have to look into it. No, and the thing of it is there's no teeth about any of these mandates either. Like, they can't come out and bust you for not wearing a mask specifically, but if the owner of the establishment complains, then you're trespassing.
Right.
Which they can do something about.
It would automatically go over to trespassing at that point? Like, even
if the owners asked you to leave, then yes, it's trespassing.
Okay, so if they ask you to leave and you do leave, is it like, do you mean like, are you saying like if you refuse to leave, or if you?
Yeah, if you refuse to leave.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
But if you go into like your McDonald's and not wear the mask, and they come out and say, "Sir, put your mask on," and you say, and this is what the RRC keeps talking about too. If you go in there and they say, "Sir, you have to leave," and you go and do the RRC's comment of, "Fuck your mask," and they say, "Sir, you have to leave," and you don't leave, then you're trespassing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Have you ever seen the RRC podcast?
I have not.
A lot of vulgar language in a deep Northeast accent.
Okay.
And he's one of my best friends too, and he's hilarious.
I'll have to check it out. There's so many.
And we're back.
I had it too. So.
All right, we are back here. We just had a second of a momentary spectrumitis over on the stream, so apologize for that. As we were coming out and pointing out that the ATF website and their Twitter account from New York put out this image, because now they have merchandise on this. Now, the funny thing about this is they turned the comments off when they decided to do this, but random Twitter users decided to quote tweet all of this instead, and all of everything else that they put out of this pointed out the absolute insanity of the tone deafness that the ATF has, because, of course, they're selling a plush dog, and everyone has to wonder if the dog comes with bullet holes pre-done in it. If the dog comes already shot.
I saw that. I remember that now. Oh my god! Of all the animals they could have picked, in good taste.
And I love the fact that they could turn the comments off and still not get over getting fucking ratioed to all fucking high hell about this too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because everyone had something to say about it. It was just absolutely hilarious. Plus, if you quote tweeted it, then everyone else could comment back on it.
Yeah.
That's the government.
That was just a dumb mistake to make.
I don't even know why the ATF is a bureau right now. The ATF should be a convenience store.
Nobody does. You're not the only one.
But apparently they've got to mandate something.
Yeah.
And alcohol and tobacco are legal too. That's why I don't understand why alcohol and tobacco are on there. I mean, firearms, I could understand why the government would be interested in this, even though they're not supposed to. They still are.
Regulating, I guess. That would be my guess, just because it has money.
And then they added explosions to it, but they didn't add that to the acronym.
Right.
So we don't say ATFE, we just say ATF.
Right.
Well,
it's one of the soup boys that need to be abolished.
All right, that's a show. Let's see what the live chat has to say here, and we'll head on out of here. So looks like
you care if I plug my caucus and my event this Saturday?
Let's get through the live chat there, and then we'll do that as well. Okay. So that way, if anybody else has any further questions on that, we'll catch them right away instead of waiting until we get all the way down to the bottom.
All right.
Let's see. Ben Wild says, "Are we going to be getting an update on the F1 season so far?" I actually don't do F1. I might, just because everything else got woke as shit, and I don't watch football or baseball anymore. I've been watching bull riding. I started getting back into the rodeo and remembering how bad my back hurt when I used to do it.
Oh my gosh.
Ben Wild had to take off, so later he had a jam. Thank you. Mark White is here from the other side of the world, our friend from Australia. Evening all. Welcome on in.
Hello.
JHH Alonic 57S. If we want to become famous, buy followers and viewers on a weird Russian website that changes out to bigfollows.com. Should we follow it? Should we check it? It seems legit.
If you want a virus, you can go ahead and do that.
Gult says, can you imagine if they had T on video saying exactly what she said here, talking back about Maxine Waters?
Oh, yeah.
Clint says the idea that anything right-wing racism is attributed to this problem is baffling. The police union is largely responsible for supporting bad police conduct, and that's absolutely true. Public sector unions especially.
Yeah.
Historical Top 5 says, howdy folks. That's a new name in here, so welcome on in. Thanks for coming and hanging out for us, or with us. Sorry we didn't get to your message sooner. I apologize for that. Gult gave us a thumbs up. Clint says, I think for certain types of jobs, they would apply pressure to wages, but most of them are far less skilled than the average American. Well, that's true, but, what comes from the bottom goes up to the top, too, so...
Right, exactly.
And, yeah, it has nothing to do with... It has nothing to do with voting. It has nothing to do with the bad people or anything else like that, or the crime or anything else. It is just... For me, it is just a matter of simple economics, is the reason that I stay closed borders. It has nothing to do with the people. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Alex Norwest had an interesting discussion on We the Fifth podcast about this. All right, we'll have to look into that. Clint also says the Johnson & Johnson vaccine just shows the CDC doesn't understand math. We've got the Chill Anarchist in here, which I haven't seen him for a while. Looks like he actually might have nuked his Twitter too. So welcome back to the world of everything else. I probably took a social media break or something. So yeah, if you're back in with us, then welcome back. Absolutely. Chilaga says, I thought I missed the show. Good morning and evening. Yeah, we ran a little bit late because I started late, and then my guest actually didn't come on until, what was it? We were an hour in already.
I was late too, for sure.
Yeah, we had a lot of miscommunication there, but I think a lot of it stemmed over the fact that I also put on a 24-hour charity event this past weekend.
Yeah, that's what I thought they were the same thing. I thought I was filling in for her at the charity event. I didn't really. Okay.
So it looks like Spectrum is going to start giving us problems here, so we're going to have to start wrapping this up here. Just finish up the last couple messages here. Chilaga says, I'm all for segregating masks and no mask. I wonder which establishments will be more fun. And that's one of the reasons, and I mentioned this before, why we started to see government mask mandates is because people were choosing winners and losers in business and not the government. And,
right.
They were encroaching on the government's fun, I guess. And Chilaga finished out and said that we're back, and we are back again. But we are going to head out of here for the night. So you are just here, and you have some news coming up here. So I wanted to wait till we were done with the chat. So if anybody had any question, we could catch it right away instead of scrolling all the way through the chat. So tell us about your event, and what you've got coming up.
Okay. Yeah, so I am the chair and executive director of the Redacted Caucus. And we're also a super PAC. We are hosting our first event this Saturday in Austin at 12 p.m., located at Butler Metro Park. It's across the river between, I believe, 20th and 6th Street. It's Dan Berman will be speaking with me. I will be speaking, and my friend Patrick Aaron will be speaking. He's one of the leaders from BLM in Texas. We're trying to raise awareness and try to bring people to the table and open that dialogue for unity that exists, the middle ground that exists between either the left, right, and centrist, and start, working towards some common goals. Because the way that we see it right now, though, and everybody that I'm around believes this as well. Our country is changing drastically, and it's getting to a point that if somebody doesn't start speaking up and we lose all our liberty and freedom, we would deserve it. Because if we can't exercise the rights that our forefathers put there for a reason to prevent from tyranny, then we deserve to be ruled by tyrants.
Yeah. And we're getting there too. And there are actually people that are excited for the fact that we're going to be ruled by tyrants. They begged for it. Most popular president in history. Honk.
Wow. But yeah, that's all we got going on. But yeah, check. We're at Twitter. We're at Caucus Redacted, and then the website is redactedcaucuslp.org.
All right, and I will. I see you had a DM for me, so I'll get that out there. Unfortunately, and to answer the question from there will not be another Red and Ed show before you get on there, so I can't have any more members on until before you get to there. But I would love to have you guys on, and every once in a while Elaine and I will do a sit down interview. We do it pre-recorded and we premiere it during the podcast, so we can do that as well sometime. Just look it up, and we'll see if we can find a day where all three of us are together, and we'll see if we can make that work.
Yeah, that was my fault. I didn't I got the events mixed up. I couldn't. I thought that I thought I'd asked you before, but I couldn't remember you saying anything. So I didn't. That message was a mess up. I realized after when I clicked on the Zoom link that you were already starting, that it was right now. Yeah. And so that's when I turned it off my phone and jumped on my computer and got on here, because I thought it was Saturday, and I wasn't able to be there Saturday because I had my daughter, and she was she was sick, so she was requiring a lot of attention.
All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about this off mic. We got to get these fine folks out of here so they can get on with their day, and I think some of them are going to join us over on the generational gap as well, if Robert decides to have the generational gap tonight. So let's throw some outro and head on out of here. So there we go. And I do want to thank everybody who came by and chatted with us tonight and kept us on task on the facts and kept me company while I was running the beginning of the show alone. If you want to catch up with me, you can catch up with me over on Twitter. That's at Edsblog Twitter with a one in place to the I. If you want to catch up with my guest co-host, tell them where they can find you.
At Caucus Redacted.
All right, go and check him out over there. And I want to thank everybody once again who has been sticking by me with these past few weeks without my regular co-host. I know a lot of you are fans of hers as well. She will be back here next week. She had to attend a funeral today, so she'll be back here next week at the regular time, 5:30 Central Time. Come and join us there. Otherwise, I will be back here tomorrow morning, 7:45 a.m. Central Time for Contemporary. So come and join me there, hang out in the live chat, and make some new friends out there as well. We did just stream live to DLive, YouTube, Facebook, and Trovo. So go and check us out on any of those other platforms if you want to, or if you're just catching up now. We also will be back on demand over on YouTube and over on BitChute.com, or we'll be back on the audio platforms, which I will be catching up with now that we're not planning a 24-hour charity event once again. So go and check us out over on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. And if you're over on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That always helps us move the charts. And also go and check out my friends from the Freedom Scoop Media Group as we finish up the last finishing touches on our website. Go check out the Generational Gap, the R-Rated Conservative, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the Freckles and Brit Show, and the Daily Ignoramus. Go and check them all out over there. Help us support great creators. And lastly, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Trent, lead them out with some last words.
Thank you all for listening to me. I hope that I at least helped answer some questions today. I look forward to seeing all of you on Saturday, and stay safe.